Hey there, Denver area homebuyers. Getting ready to buy a house in Denver or the surrounding areas in the next 12 to 18 months and feeling overwhelmed and maybe even confused about the difference between down payment, closing costs, and what it all means? You're not alone. This video is for you. Hi everybody, my name is Carl Eschenberg and thanks for stopping by the channel. I'm with the Living in Denver Today team, and on this channel we help Denver area home buyers and sellers navigate the rapidly changing Denver real estate market to win without wasting time or losing money in the process. So if you're getting ready to buy a house in Denver or the surrounding areas in the next 12 to 18 months, this video is designed to help you understand the difference between down payment and closing costs, all the different closing costs and what they actually mean, and it's even going to expose or explain really the hidden closing costs that you hear everybody talk about all the time. Are they really hidden or are they just misunderstood? We're going to find out. Let's jump in. All right, 8 Denver home buyer costs explained. So there's basically 2 different points when you're gonna have costs associated with purchasing a home. There's your upfront cost, which you will pay out of pocket prior to purchasing and closing on the property. And then there's additional costs, closing costs, which typically are paid at the closing. Now there are exceptions to every rule, and this is by no means gonna be an exhaustive list of everything. We just wouldn't wanna bore you with all that. But we're gonna go over some of the more misunderstood and some of the common, so you have a really good idea of what to expect when you're purchasing a home so that you can effectively budget to do so. So the upfront buying costs are pretty straightforward. These are the ones that everybody talks about. You've got your down payment. So down payments can range anywhere from 0 all the way up to 20% or higher, depending on the mortgage program that you select. Here's a couple examples of typical down payments associated with the main types of mortgages. A conventional mortgage, it could be anywhere from 3% to 20%. Typically when people talk about conventional mortgages, they talk about the 20% down. There are different options. It depends on a whole bunch of different things, but just to keep things simple, we'll talk about the 20% down for conventional mortgage. Then you have FHA, which ranges from 3.5% and up. The down payment that's required for an FHA program, again, depends on a couple of different qualifying factors, and it can vary from person to person, situation to situation. So you definitely want to talk to your agent or your loan officer if you have questions on that. VA loans, 0 down. We actually have done an entire video on how to save thousands on buying a house in the Denver area, and VA and USDA loans are one of them. I'll link to that right here above me, so you can check that out if you're interested. And then USDA loans, they are not just for farms. They're very misunderstood. Again, that video that we just linked to will explain a little bit more detail about that, but again, it's a 0 down option. So anywhere from 0 to 20% is your down payment range, just to kind of keep things in perspective while you're thinking about purchasing the home. And you can do some quick math using those numbers and reliably come up with what you're going to need. So then there's also mortgage or loan origination fees. So these can vary from lender to lender pretty significantly. The main fees that you're going to run into are going to be things like the application and credit fees, which are going to be on the front end. And again, a lot of these can be paid at closing. Some of them need to be paid up front. You'll have to figure out exactly what your lender requires, but the loan application fee and the credit check fee, they're nominal fees, but again, they're costs. So we want to make sure that they're mentioned so that you can feel prepared and empowered in your home buying process. And then the origination and the underwriting fees, again, these can vary from lender to lender. So you want to get what's called a buyer cost estimate from your lender. So for example, when one of our buyers works with our lender and gets pre-approved, the first thing that happens once they're pre-approved is they get a buyer cost estimate sheet. So basically it's a worksheet that goes over all the costs. It's a fully transparent list of the costs that you can expect, both from the lender as well as throughout the real estate transaction process. There can be other things that come up, but that's typically the rarity in most cases. So this will give you a really good idea of what you need to be prepared for. So those are the upfront costs. Those are the ones that everybody talks about all the time. Now, I know that that's a lot of information. So if you have any questions or if you want clarity on anything, you can reach out to us anytime. You can drop a comment below this video. We answer all of those personally. Or if you'd like, you can reach out to us by phone, text, or email. You can call us, email us, or text us at the information on your screen, or scan the QR code, and we'll be happy to answer all your questions in as much detail or as little detail as you want. This is complicated stuff, and our goal with these videos is always to empower you to not only feel like you're empowered, but actually be empowered throughout the home buying process. All right, let's jump back into these hidden costs and see what that's all about. Okay, so people talk about hidden costs all the time, and I always like to ask, are they really hidden or are they just misunderstood? Now, don't get me wrong, there are hidden costs that come up in real estate transactions all the time. We see it, but those hidden costs typically pop up because someone's not paying attention or taking care of their client. So there can be all kinds of junk fees and things like that stacked onto real estate deals. So you really want to make sure that the agent that you're working with, as well as your lender, really have your best interests at heart, and they're not stacking all these these fees and allowing these things to fly through, because the truth is people do get taken advantage of. But that's more of a lack of service and professionalism on behalf of the people that you're working with. They're not really hidden fees. They're right there. Everything has to be disclosed in a real estate transaction on the HUD statement. So they're not hidden. They're right there for everyone to see, including the agent that you're working with and your lender and the title representatives. So everybody knows these fees are there. The only question is whether they've explained them to you and prepared you for it. We do a full cost breakdown with every buyer that we work with, so there's no surprises. And your agent should do that. Regardless of who you're working with, make sure you at least get a buyer estimate from your lender. And then during the closing process and once you're getting ready to close, your agent should sit down and go through the preliminary HUD with you to go over every single cost associated with the closing of that transaction, so that there's no surprises when you get to the closing table. Again, if you have questions, let us know. We'd be happy to answer any of those questions for you. So what are some of these hidden costs, or the costs that come up? Closing costs is really what they are. Title fees. These are the costs associated with having someone manage the closing process, as well as title insurance and a few other things that are involved with transferring property legally, effectively, and safely. I won't get into too much detail here. We're going to do a whole video on title fees in the future. But again, if you have questions, just be aware that these fees, they are part of a real estate transaction, so they're not hidden, but they are fees that are going to be paid at closing. They typically get rolled into your mortgage. Insurance. Homeowners insurance and potentially hazard insurance, depending on where the property is located, are two things that these are the ones that kind of surprise people. So make sure that you understand what your insurance is going to cost, shop it around, get a good rate, and make sure that it's taken care of at the time that it needs to be taken care of, so you don't get any surprises. Hazard insurance is another thing. Depending on if you live in an area where there could be flooding or there could be wildfires and things like that, sometimes you'll be required to carry what's called hazard insurance. So make sure, again, that your agents and your lender are super well versed with the property that you're buying, where it is, and whether or not any of these special insurances are required. HOA, which is homeowners association, condo association, or co-op fees. This is another one that has a tendency to surprise people, but not because it's hidden, just because they're misunderstood. HOA fees, condo fees, and all of that. If the property is located in an area that has this, those fees have to be taken care of by the new buyer. So typically they're prorated, and I won't get into all the details for that because it's way too long for this video, but just be aware that if you're buying a property that has a homeowners association, a condo association, or it's in a co-op, there will be additional fees associated with living in that facility. And these fees cover things like road maintenance, plowing the sidewalks or plowing the roads and the sidewalks, taking care of the common areas. If there's a clubhouse or a pool, all those things get pulled out of the association, and many, many others, but that's why they're there. They're not hidden fees, they're not surprises. It's just part of living in an association. Transfer taxes and recording fees. These are government fees that are required for the transfer of real property in the state of Colorado. But again, it's something that you want to be aware of just to understand where money is going throughout the process. So to transfer the title of a property, a transfer tax has to be paid. And then typically there's recording fees as well to record the deed. Appraisal and home inspection fees. These can be paid at closing or on the front end. It depends on the lender and how things go. Typically the inspection fees paid on the front end, it's cash out of pocket. So it kind of fluid. We put it here for closing costs. It's not a hidden closing cost. It's a closing cost that you should incur. The reason people get confused about it is because you don't have to do a home inspection. You absolutely should do a home inspection, but you don't have to do one. The appraisal does have to happen if you're purchasing with the mortgage, but the inspection's optional. So some people are like, oh, I didn't know I had to do that. You should do it. You don't have to do it, but you should. And inspections can range from a couple $100 to several $100, depending on everything you get inspected, whether you do additional tests like radon, mold, and things like that. But again, these are costs that are part of purchasing the property, and we want you to be prepared so that you can effectively budget for everything. And then finally, reserves is another one that people talk about and it's very misunderstood. There are times when a lender will require you to have what's called reserves in the bank. So typically this is a number of months to cover the costs of your mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So these reserves, they're required to be in the bank. The lender will verify that they're in the bank. So it's not really a cost, but it could be an amount of money that you're required to have. So again, if you're in a situation where you haven't bought a lot of property, or maybe this is your first property that you're buying, make sure that you talk with your lender about whether reserves will be required, and if so, what they are, so that you can be prepared on the front end and not get surprised towards the closing. All right, there you have it. 8 Denver homebuyer costs explained. Are they really hidden? I don't think so. I think they're just a lot of misunderstood stuff. Now, like I said, there are times where there are fees that get stuffed into closing documents, and honestly, they kind of just fly under the radar if people aren't really paying attention. So make sure that your agent and your lender are paying attention to that entire process, and make sure that you're paying attention to the HUD settlement statement when you get it, so that you can review it line for line and see every cost that's associated. There's nothing hidden. It's literally all there in black and white. It has to be by federal law. If you'd like more information about what's involved in the home buying process, please feel free to reach out for our free Denver Homebuyer Guide. You can text homebuyer to the number on your screen, or you can scan that QR code. We'll instantly send you a free copy. It is packed with information of all the different things that are involved with buying a property from start to finish in Denver, the surrounding areas. There's a ton of information in there about closing costs. We go way deeper on that than we can in this video. So if you're interested in that, please just let us know. We're happy to send it over to you for free and do anything that we can to help. If you are interested in buying a house or selling a house in Denver, the surrounding areas, we post videos like this every single week. And again, our goal is always to empower Denver area home buyers and sellers to win in this market. It is super competitive and it's changing really fast. So if this type of information was helpful, or if this video was helpful for you, go ahead and smash the like button for us. Not because it helps us, it's because it helps get the video in front of other people like yourself that might find it helpful as well. We answer all comments below, texts, emails, and phone calls personally. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be dropping another video like this next week. But in between now and then, if you have any questions or you need clarification on anything you saw in this video or any other video on our channel, I'd love to help you any way I can. And if you absolutely positively have to get out to see houses between now and next Tuesday, my name's Carl Eschenberg, and I'd love to show you around town.